Are you a new or soon-to-be mom who's wondering about the pros and cons of breastfeeding versus formula feeding? In today's video, I'm laying out some important facts about breastfeeding and formula feeding so that you could decide which one is the right fit for you and your family. If we haven't met before, my name's Jess. I'm a mom to a 1-year-old little boy and a former early childhood teacher. I started The Innovative Mama to help moms of little ones navigate the world of early motherhood. So if you'd like to see videos on the topics of pregnancy, parenting in the early years, and educational activities for young children, then definitely click that subscribe button along with the notification bell so that you never miss an upload. So before we start, I just want to say that I have experience with both breastfeeding and formula feeding, and I definitely found there to be pros and cons with each. And I know this can be a controversial topic at times, but the purpose of this video is to explain benefits and choices of the different ways to feed a baby. With that being said, my channel is a shame-free space for moms. Being a mom alone is stressful enough without all the added constant mom shaming that I see going on in the world today. It's just not cool, and I'm not down with that. So let's remember to support one another even when our opinions may differ. We have the beautiful ability to seek out information and educate ourselves in order to make the best decisions for our families, not someone else's. So with that being said, let's get started. So first, let's talk about the pros of breastfeeding, because there are many. So the first most obvious one about breastfeeding is it's free. The milk itself is free. Obviously, you produce it, it's on you, it's available at any time, which is awesome. You don't have to pay for it. However, we'll talk about in a little while, if you're breastfeeding, there definitely are some items that you may need to buy, so the price could add up and it could actually cost something. Most of the time, breastfeeding is super convenient. Like I said, the milk is on you, so you just pop baby on whenever they're hungry and that's it. There's nothing to prep, there's nothing to clean, none of that. However, if you're out, things might get a little more complicated. So again, we'll touch on that in a little while. There are no bottles. You don't have to use bottles unless obviously you're pumping and feeding baby through a bottle or someone else has to feed baby. But other than that, there are no bottles with breastfeeding. Bonding is a super huge pro with breastfeeding. So you produce oxytocin when you breastfeed, which is a bonding hormone. So through that skin-to-skin contact that you're getting with breastfeeding, you bond more with baby. Obviously, that's not to say that you're not gonna bond with your child if they're formula fed, and you can always take your shirt off and do skin-to-skin contact. So studies have shown that there have been antibodies found in breast milk that actually fight off sicknesses and infection. So that's a really, really cool pro about breastfeeding, is that the antibodies that are found in breast milk can actually keep your baby healthier. Another pro for breast milk is that you will potentially have less picky eaters, because what's really cool is whatever you eat as mom, the taste goes to your breast milk. So your baby is getting a taste of all different kinds of foods while they're eating. So down the line, you could potentially have a less picky eater. With breastfeeding, there are a lot of benefits for mom as well as baby. For a lot of moms, it helps them lose weight because you're burning extra calories when your body's making milk. So that's obviously a pro, because a lot of moms want to lose that weight after they have a baby, right? You just spent 9 months gaining weight and now you want to lose it. There's also a lower chance of certain diseases when you breastfeed. So studies have shown a lower risk in things like breast cancer, high blood pressure, diabetes, and uterine and ovarian cancer when you are a breastfeeding mom. So the milk that you make is tailor-made for your baby, which is so, so cool. And it changes as your baby grows. So your body creates the exact amount of nutrients that your baby needs to grow and thrive, which is awesome. So while there are a lot of pros to breastfeeding, it definitely doesn't come without cons and complications. It can be really painful. So you can have conditions such as mastitis, which is an infection in your breast tissue. You can have clogged milk ducts, thrush, sore nipples, engorgement. There's a lot of stuff that can happen. I actually had a lot of these issues when I first began breastfeeding. I got mastitis, so I felt like I had the flu and had to be on antibiotic. I had clogged ducts, I had damaged nipples, engorgement. There was just a lot of things that happened that made the beginning really, really complicated. So if you are looking to breastfeed and you want some tips, definitely check out my breastfeeding tips video after this, because I have some really, really good tips in there that I wish I would have known before I started breastfeeding that would have helped make my journey a little easier. So definitely go check that out if you're planning on breastfeeding. Another con to breastfeeding is if you're going to be away from your baby, you need to pump. So this requires extra time on top of you already having to feed your baby. So if you have to return to work from maternity leave after you have your baby, you're gonna have to be doing a lot of pumping along with breastfeeding if you plan on exclusively giving your baby only breast milk. So that's something to think about too. Breastfeeding requires a lot of time. So in the beginning, you're feeding your baby every 2 to 3 hours, which is a lot. And then, like I said, if you're pumping on top of that to build up a storage, it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's really like you feel like that's all you're doing sometimes in the beginning, or at least I did. So another con to breastfeeding is while breast milk has almost all the nutrients the baby needs, vitamin D is not passed through the breast milk to baby. So you do need to supplement with vitamin D, where you don't have to do that if you're formula feeding, because formula does contain vitamin D. Another con to breastfeeding is when you're breastfeeding in public, it may not be super convenient. This is a personal thing and it's up to the mom who's breastfeeding, but if you're breastfeeding in a public place and you're not comfortable just breastfeeding, you may have to cover up or go find a spot that's quiet and kind of off to the side. So that's something to think about as well. I didn't really go a lot of places when my son was a newborn, and then we were quarantined, so it was like I didn't really have that issue with having to breastfeed in public. And normally if I was out somewhere, I would just go, it was like at someone's house, so I would just go in a separate room. So I didn't really experience that, like having to cover up in public or anything like that, but just something to think about. Another con to breastfeeding is everything that goes into your body also passes through to baby. So you need to watch what you're eating, what you're drinking, what kind of supplements you're taking. So you really have to think about this and be conscious of your diet and what baby may or may not be sensitive to, because sometimes babies have sensitivities or allergies that can be bothered by what they're getting in their breast milk. So while I touched on breastfeeding being free before, you do need some special clothing and equipment. Like I said, you need nursing bras. They make it so much easier, especially if you're feeding out in public, maybe nursing tops. You don't necessarily need these things, but you're probably gonna want to get a few of them. And it can add up, they can be expensive. Also, definitely check out, if you are planning on breastfeeding, check out my breastfeeding essentials video that talks about all the products that really, really helped me on my breastfeeding journey. So now let's talk about a little bit about formula. So formula is a great option for many different reasons. Not everyone physically can breastfeed, or not everyone chooses to, and that's okay. So there are a lot of benefits to formula feeding. And like I said, I have done both, so I've experienced both things. The first benefit of formula feeding is anyone can feed the baby. So it doesn't have to always be you feeding the baby. It can be anyone. It could be your partner or a grandma, grandpa, whoever can feed baby, which is really nice. And it can take a little bit of the burden off of you as mom. Formula feeding can be easier to do in public. So you just literally take out the bottle and feed baby. So it's not like you have to find somewhere or cover up if you choose to do that. You don't have to worry about any of that. So formula fed babies also don't usually need to eat as often as breastfed babies, because formula isn't digested as quickly as breast milk is. So you have a little bit more time in between feedings, which is nice. It's not every 2 to 3 hours like you have to do with a breastfed baby in the beginning. You don't need to worry about what you're eating or drinking or what supplements you're taking or what your diet's like. So you don't need to worry about any of that because your baby is not relying on you for their food. So that's another pro for formula feeding. You also don't need to worry about the issues that come with breastfeeding, any of the complications that can arise with breastfeeding, because you're not doing it. So you don't need to worry about that stuff. Another pro for formula feeding is you know how much your baby is getting because you can see in their bottle and how much you're giving them and how much they're actually drinking. With breastfeeding, you can't necessarily do that. So it can be a little more complicated if you're breastfeeding to find out if your baby's getting enough milk. You kind of have to gauge it in different ways. So as with anything, along with the pros come cons. So some cons of formula is, one of the most obvious is it can be really, really expensive. You can find less expensive alternatives with formula, but For example, if your baby needs a special kind of formula, like if they have a milk allergy and they need like a soy-based formula, those are more expensive. So there's things that sometimes you can't control with the expense. You can also buy your formula at bulk places like Costco or BJ's, which is what we wound up doing. We use the Enfamil NeuroPro formula. We do get this at Costco, so I think we get 2 tubs in like a pack that are this big. This is 20 ounces of formula, but this is like the powdered formula. So formula comes in all different, it comes in like ready-made liquid form or powder form. The powder form is the least expensive. So this is the most cost-effective option. So there are ways to make it a little more affordable. We love this formula. I love it because it was inspired by breast milk. I did a lot of research when it came to formula. It is a milk-based formula. If you do find out that your baby has like a lactose sensitivity or they're lactose intolerant and they can't have milk, they can't have this formula. But this was a really good option. We really, really like this formula. It is inspired by breast milk and has a lot of like brain building nutrition in there. So my son did well with it. This was the only kind we ever tried, so it worked for us. There's also no antibodies in formula like there are in breast milk. No matter how much scientists research breast milk, they still cannot replicate it completely and put all of the same things in formula that is in breast milk. So that's another con. So there's no antibodies that can fight off like infections and sicknesses like there are in breast milk. There's more preparation and cleaning involved with formula-fed babies because you need to clean the bottles, sterilize the bottles, warm the bottles. So there's a lot more in that regard, whereas breastfeeding, obviously, if you're with baby, you just pop them on and there's no equipment required. So that's another con for formula feeding. And like I said, scientists still can't duplicate every single thing that breastfeeding has to offer. So that's something to think about as well. So another option is to do combination feeding. You can do some breast milk and some formula. Even just a little bit of breast milk is fine, but like I said, you need to do what's right for you and your family. I have so many friends that have really beat themselves up over not being able to breastfeed or not producing enough or whatever the issues were, and they stress themselves out so much, and it's just not worth it. It's not worth it for your mental health as a mom and for the health of your baby. It's just not worth it. There is nothing wrong with feeding your baby formula if that is what you choose and that's what's best for you. If you try breastfeeding out and you're having issues and you're going crazy and crying and making yourself, trust me, I get it because I was there. Don't beat yourself up. However, with that being said, if you really, really want to breastfeed and you're having a difficult time, then definitely seek help. I went to a special like breastfeeding center and had someone really look at everything, like the way my baby was latching and all this stuff, and it was really super helpful. Just seek help and support and surround yourself with people that are supportive of any decision that you make. That's what's really important, because like I said, you just want to make the decision that's right for you and your family. So if you choose to breastfeed, great. If you choose to formula feed, great. If you choose to do both, great. All that matters is a happy mom and a happy baby. So the bottom line is do what's best for you and your family. If you got value out of this video, then please give it a thumbs up. For more videos on pregnancy, parenting in the early years, and fun educational activities for your little ones, definitely make sure you click that subscribe button and the notification bell. Also be sure to check out theinnovativemama.com for even more parenting tips. If you are thinking about breastfeeding, then definitely check out my breastfeeding essentials video and my breastfeeding tips video. You'll definitely find them really, really helpful. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.